We love a specific kind of story. Someone is born into nothing, and through sheer grit, determination, and raw talent, they fight their way to the top. We call it being self-made. Meet someone who seems like the ultimate embodiment of this idea, Christopher Langan. The average person has an IQ of around 100. Albert Einstein's was estimated at 150. Langan's IQ has been measured at 195. He is, by many accounts, the smartest man in America, a guy who taught himself to read at age 3 and could ace foreign language exams without ever studying. In a true meritocracy, innate talent like that is all that matters. Take Canadian junior hockey, for example. It is designed to be a pure, talent-based selection system. If you have the physical ability, scouts will find you, groom you, and channel you into elite leagues. You can't buy your way in, and your family's connections don't matter. But look at this chart mapping the birth dates of the 2007 Medicine Hat Tigers, one of the elite teams in the Canadian Hockey League. The roster is clustered almost entirely in January, February, and March. It's a massive statistical anomaly. 17 out of the 25 players were born in the first 4 months of the year. If a system designed purely to filter for talent produces a mathematically impossible demographic outcome, the standard formula for success is missing something vital. The explanation for this clustering has nothing to do with astrology. In Canada, the eligibility cutoff for age-class hockey is January 1st. This chart shows exactly how a cutoff date creates a feedback loop. A boy who turns 10 on January 2nd is playing alongside someone who doesn't turn 10 until December. At that age, a 12-month gap represents a huge difference in physical maturity. The bigger, more coordinated 9-year-olds get selected for the elite traveling squads, which gives them better coaching, better teammates, and double the practice time. By the time they reach their early teens, years of elite coaching mean they have transformed that early physical maturity into superior skills. The kid who started out a few months older now has thousands of hours of extra practice under his belt, creating a gap that talent alone cannot bridge. Sociologists call this a cumulative advantage. These players didn't start out as massive outliers. They started out a tiny bit older, which led to an opportunity, which made their slight edge a bit sharper, and on until they reached the professional level. This points to a widely observed metric in the study of expertise, the 10,000-hour rule. Neurologists and psychologists have found that achieving world-class mastery in a complex task requires roughly 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. But here is the hidden caveat. Hitting that number by your early 20s is practically impossible to do on your own. You need parents who can support you financially, and most importantly, you need access to an extraordinarily rare system that allows you to put in the time. Even the greatest musical prodigies relied on this access. Long before they came to America, John, Paul, George, and Ringo were just a struggling high school band from Liverpool. Then they were invited to play in the strip clubs of Hamburg, Germany. They didn't get paid well, and the acoustics were terrible, but the club owners forced them to play 8 hours a night, 7 days a week. Over a year and a half, they performed live an estimated 1,200 times, racking up the thousands of hours of stamina and discipline that separated them from every other band in Europe. Or consider Bill Gates. In 1968, as an 8th grader at a private school in Seattle, his mother's club bought a computer terminal with a direct link to a downtown mainframe. Gates got to do real-time programming when most universities didn't even have computer clubs yet. Everyone else in the 1960s was using cardboard punch cards. You handed a stack of them to an operator and waited a day to see if your code worked. It taught patience, but it didn't let you practice. Gates, however, had access to a timeshare system, allowing him to program live, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, long before he even finished high school. Reaching the status of a genius relies heavily on stumbling into an environment that allows for relentless, obsessive practice. Beyond local environments, there is a macro-level factor that shapes success: historical timing. This is a timeline graphing the 75 richest people in human history, from Egyptian pharaohs to modern billionaires. Notice the massive spike right here in the mid-19th century. 14 of them, almost 20% of the wealthiest people to ever live, were Americans born in a single narrow 9-year window in the 1830s. Individuals like John D. Rockefeller came of age precisely as the American economy went through the greatest transformation in its history. Wall Street emerged, railroads were built, and industrial manufacturing exploded. If you were born in the 1820s, your business habits were formed in the localized pre-industrial economy that existed before the Civil War. You were too old to adapt to the new rules. And if you were born in the late 1840s, you missed the initial boom entirely. Amassing this level of wealth required hitting an exact demographic alignment. We see the exact same pattern in the personal computer revolution. In January 1975, Popular Electronics featured the Altair 8800 mini-computer kit on its cover, signaling that computers were finally small enough for an ordinary person to own and program at home. Look at the timeline of the people who capitalized on this moment. When the personal computer market effectively launched in 1975, you couldn't be a 30-year-old IBM executive with a mortgage, and you couldn't be a teenager still in high school. You needed to be 20 or 21 years old. Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer, Eric Schmidt, and Bill Joy were all born between 1953 and 1956. Steve Jobs was born in February 1955 and grew up in Mountain View, California, the center of Silicon Valley. He hit the exact demographic sweet spot, combined with the physical geography of living in a neighborhood filled with Hewlett-Packard engineers. Vision and talent are real, but they are entirely moot unless they intersect with a precise historical moment capable of rewarding them. In the 1950s, a physician noticed that virtually no one under the age of 55 in the town of Roseto, Pennsylvania, died of heart disease. To understand why, researchers mapped the town. They found a deeply interconnected community with 3 generations living under one roof, robust civic organizations, and constant social interaction. The residents weren't remarkably healthy because of their genetics or their diets. Many of them cooked with lard and smoked heavily. They were healthy because of the protective social structure they built. Success operates on this exact same ecological principle. The people we call outliers are not magical individuals who defied the odds. They are the inevitable products of hidden advantages, cultural legacies, timing, and highly specific environments. When we pretend that success is purely self-made, we end up designing systems that systematically exclude people. By holding on to arbitrary cutoff dates in youth sports or rigid ability streaming in early education, we are systemically overlooking the potential of millions who fall on the wrong side of an arbitrary deadline. We write off talent before it even has a chance to mature. If we want to generate more outliers, we have to stop staring exclusively in awe at the tallest trees in the forest and finally start paying attention to the soil.